This spring, as I'm sure you have figured out, it's been talked about a couple of times, I was on the road for workshop tour, and it's always a blessing to get out on the road, to go to the different summer camps, meet the staff that are going to be at the camp for that particular summer, and learn from them while we're teaching them. You're never too old, you're never too full of knowledge to learn more information. When we work with horses, the thing that scares Esther and I the most is when we have somebody come in and they say, we know everything already. Because that tells us they don't. And sometimes they'll change their mindset by the end of the week, sometimes they won't. But workshops are getting more and more challenging for us as we go year to year. This particular year was no different for us. I was on the road for 3 weeks, 3 different camps that I was at. One camp, circumstances outside our control. By the end of the week, the herd of 10 horses and 8 of them were lame. And it wasn't anything we did. It was something that happened that was 100% outside our sphere of influence. And it's hard to teach people about horses, to give riding pointers, to do a riding program when you can't use the horses. Another facility, once again, outside our control. This happened before we even got there. 13 horses in the herd, and 5 of them were lame. Varying degrees. Some of them we could use for one ride, and then they were done the rest of the day. So it's very challenging when you're having these issues. As the skill level has been going down, this is a problem we've been facing for the last 10 years or so now, because it used to be that summer camps were able to find people to work in the horse barns that grew up with horses. They grew up on a farm, they had experience, and then when it came time for certification, it was merely taking what they already had and honing their skills to work in a commercial riding program and get them some standards so that everybody would be safe, be able to work together. But now when we're getting staff that are being hired by summer camps, that some of them, I kid you not, have 0 experience with horses, it is challenging to teach them. What's more challenging is the competition for their focus. Cell phones are running rampant. They're a wonderful tool, and they're the worst nightmare for people. Everybody is getting used to bite-sized content from social media. So it's being pushed right now. We're live streaming right now on Facebook and YouTube, and guess what I get in my email box after every single Sabbath? How to cut it down into small bite-sized pieces that can easily be posted to draw people in. Because that's what the industry is pushing, small, minute-long or less little clips to bring people in. And yet here we come Sabbath mornings and expect people to sit through a half-hour, 40-minute sermon. We take people and we send them to summer camp, and they are expected to sit through a training program that we estimate is equivalent to a 4-hour college class. We start at 4 o'clock Sunday afternoon and don't typically end until 4 or 5 o'clock Friday afternoon. And oftentimes they're having to do horse chores before breakfast. After breakfast, we have classes until lunch, classes all through the afternoon until supper, and then we're back doing classes in the evening. And we usually finish in the evenings. Ideally, we want to be done by 9. Frequently, it's pushing 10, and then they have homework they have to do as far as some book reading and worksheets they have to fill out. And so when you have a society that is struggling to focus, it makes our job on workshop tour even more challenging because we're struggling to maintain that focus. When you start looking at this problem across the entire country, I had a revelation last night as my day had come to an end finally, a very long day. We'll talk about that later. Everybody else in my house had gone to bed, and one of the things that I have come to enjoy on the 4th of July is standing at the end of my driveway and watching all the different fireworks going off all around the countryside. From the end of my driveway, I can actually see all the large aerials from the Saginaw show, and then you got all the little ones all around that you can see. And the thought that hit me last night, looking at this focus issue, is in the week leading up to the 4th of July, sometimes it even starts sooner than that, all through social media, you see people posting, please be mindful of the pets. Remember, our dogs don't like loud noises. And as I was listening last night, it hit me. We're complaining about a couple nights of loud noises. How long has the war in Ukraine been going on? How long have people in the Middle East been having to deal with the unknown of when bombs are going to drop? And yet we're worried about just a couple nights of a few fireworks going off. Our focus is so off, we're forgetting about the fact that we're going to take a couple of days and celebrate the fact that we're free. Now, granted, we're not going to get into discussion now of what freedoms we're losing. That is not the point today. We are still a free country to some extent. We have a wonderful military that does protect this country, and we can go to sleep at night knowing that there is an extremely low likelihood that we're going to wake up to bombs dropping. There are people in this world that is not the case. And we get so caught up in me and focusing on what social media is telling us to do and not looking at that big picture, not focusing on what we should be focusing on. The Bible is full of stories of focus. Some people's focus fades. You look at the children of Israel, how many times did they lose their focus? How many times did God have to say, remember me? Remember what I've done? It's also full of stories of people that have stood the test of time and maintained that focus under every possible imaginable situation that could hit them. Job is the first one that comes to mind. Losing everything, and where did his focus stay? Never failing. His friends tried to persuade him away, but he kept the focus. That's one of my favorite things about Hebrews 11, known as the by faith chapter. All of these people, through time, keeping their focus and having the faith, and they're recognized in it. Our scripture reading this morning, Hebrews 11, 1 and 2. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, for by it the elders obtained a good testimony. That is what Hebrews 11 is the snippet of the testimony of all these people through the years that have been recorded in the Bible. Some of these people have been so focused on God, it has been so known who their God is, that God has been referenced as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. You start looking in Hebrews 11, you could say the God of Moses, the God of Noah, all these people in here. Time and time again, by faith Abel, by faith Enoch, by faith Noah, by faith Abraham, by faith Sarah. It just keeps on going. By faith Abraham, by faith Isaac, by faith Jacob, by faith Joseph, by faith Moses, by faith Moses. Moses did a fair amount. It keeps on going. All these people had one focused goal, and that was God. Focus on Him no matter what. In Sabbath school, we were talking about Moses. We're diving into Exodus, and Moses' focus, his family's focus, starting out in a basket, put in a river. the focus they had, that his parents had, to have the faith. What a powerful story it is. Verse 3 of Hebrews 11, by faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are invisible. God made them. It takes the faith, it takes that focus. America is out of focus. It does not take very much to come to that conclusion. All it takes is about 30 seconds looking at any media source, and you'll figure it out pretty quick that we've lost our focus. And I will admit, it is challenging sometimes to maintain our focus. I like how chapter 12 starts. We've gone through chapter 11, hitting that. If you read that, take time this afternoon if you are not remembering all of chapter 11. Read that by faith chapter to see what people have done. But I love how chapter 12 starts, verse 1. Therefore we also, therefore is that important word because it's referencing back to something that previously happened. All of that by faith chapter. Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. All those people in chapter 11, all who kept their focus, all who got the faith. Since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and every sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. What's it start with? Looking or focusing on Jesus, who is what? The author and the finisher of our faith. So with that, just the first little bit there of verse 2 of chapter 12, we take that and look back at chapter 11. All those people by faith, that faith comes from looking at Jesus, who is the author and the finisher of our faith. And then verse 2 continues, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. It takes tremendous focus to overcome the challenges that are before us. This week has been a challenging one. And I'm going to struggle to get through it. I've had a lot of sleepless nights this week and a lot of unexpected stress. If you remember last Sabbath, Tanya had a prayer request that we would have a window of opportunity to get the hay done. Now, looking back on that, what the prayer request should have been was that we would have a window of time that would have no rain, sunny skies, low humidity preferably, about a 5 to 10 mile an hour wind every day, that the equipment would work just fine, no rain, that kind of goes with the clear skies, and that the equipment would also handle the size crop that we had. We weren't specific enough because you see, we had rain come through on Monday and it had cleared up. I talked to Tanya. She said it wasn't that much. I looked at my digital rain gauge from my weather station and it had only recorded like a tenth. I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to cut hay Monday night. And so I got home, got the tractor hooked up to the hay mower, we had supper, and I said goodnight to the kids, and I headed out. I wanted to get around the field, get the field opened up before I lost sunlight. I knew it was going to be a late night. And I had already been out to the field, and I knew, watching it through the spring, I knew there were some heavy spots in it, and I started mowing. And I'd had some issues with my hay mower last year, and I did some modifications to it this year, hoping it would work better. Well, when you're stopping every 75 to 100 feet to unplug the mower, it gets old really fast, and 2, clumps of hay laying in the field do not dry well. And so I called Caleb. I got a problem, Caleb. And he chuckled. And he graciously volunteered to start driving the farm's hay mower over, and I would meet him halfway, and he'd take my car back, and I'd take the mower to my house. And got the mower to my house, and the kids hadn't quite gotten in bed yet, and so they came out and got to ride in the big farm tractor. Loved that. Edward went to bed that night and told Tanya that was a blast. But I started making laps around the field, opening up my 6.5 acres. Wonderful to have friends with big toys. Really big toy in my little 6.5 acres. And my mower is just a cutter bar. The farm's mower is what they call a mower conditioner. And so it's got the cutter bar that cuts the hay, but then it's got another step that it goes through to help the hay to dry better. And I figured, well, I'm not going to be able to run as fast in my field just because of the size, so I'm going to be running a little bit slower than we normally run at the farm. I'm going to choke that conditioner down a little bit. I was only about 50% conditioning on it. Should have been fine. And I think it was the 4th or 5th time around the field, I plugged that mower solid. Had a moment of panic because my warning indicator that it was plugged was the smoke billowing out of the belt box at the back of the mower. And my first thought is, oh no, I know what it takes to change that belt because we already broke a belt on that mower this year. And I know that it's over $250 for a new belt. And I got out expecting to find a trashed belt and opened up the shield on the belt and thought, phew, it's still in one piece. Still looks halfway decent. It's just a little broken now. And I looked under the mower, and the conditioning drum, when the flails are fully extended, spinning on it, is probably about 2 foot in diameter, the whole thing spinning. And what is that, about 6 feet wide-ish? Solid wrapped with grass. Completely solid. That's fully wrapped, tight against the hoods inside, tight against the cutter bar. Well, nothing to do but start pulling hay out. And I start pulling hay, and I'm pulling hay, and I'm pulling hay, and finally get it cleaned, and I'm like, well, we're going to open that conditioner up a little bit more, and apparently 5.5 miles an hour is too fast, so we're going to drop a gear, and we're going to go 4.5 miles an hour. Finally got the field finished, and I'm like, those are some thick windrows. This is going to take a little bit to dry. Drove the mower back to work Tuesday morning, and was talking with Caleb, and the farm has a tedder, which takes and flips the hay over, gets some air into the hay, spreads it out a little bit, helps to aid with the drying process. And I've had it over to my house multiple times before, but normally we load it and the tractor that pulls it on a trailer. It's a smaller tractor. All the trailers were in use at the time that could haul it. And so I left early with an 1.5-hour drive to my house on the tractor. Adding insult to injury, as I'm going along, the temp gauge on the tractor starts climbing, and I'm like, oh no, this is not going well. Starts hitting on the red line. I'm like, I know we've had issues with this before, but this is not what I want to deal with. I got to get this home. My wife has to go to work tonight. I don't have time to be broke down on the side of the road. And tapping on the gauge, will it go back down? Is it stuck? What's it doing? And I get down into a little ravine as I'm weaseling my way across the countryside, shade over the tractor. I ended up having to stop and wait for somebody to get going or get past me. And I start going, hit a couple bumps, and the gauge goes to halfway, or the needle goes back to halfway on the gauge. I'm like, didn't realize I was praying that hard, but thank you. Got home, squeaked out getting the field tedded out. Edward jumped on the tractor with me. We got it tedded the first pass before Tanya went to work. This was Tuesday night. And I'm like, well, it's actually drying pretty good. As I was watching as I was tedding, I'm like, that's surprising. I didn't expect it to dry that much. Wednesday comes along, and I'm finishing my working on my equipment because I had cut hay without my baler fully put back together, because the pickup head on it had been giving me issues last year. So I got a whole new set of pickup tines on it, and the new bands that go between it, had to replace half of those, and finished getting it together. Got the kids lunch, went out and tedded the field one more time. My mom was driving over because she was going to watch the kids so that I could work on my hay. And I was out there and I'm like, man, that hay is really drying down. I need to go out there with a moisture meter and see where it's at, because it sure looks like it's ready to go. And finished heading the field out. There were some spots that were definitely still a little heavy, but the lighter spots, I thought they could go. Got the kids in bed. Sure enough, when I tested it, I was right, 15 to 10% moisture, right in the window. Hooked my rake up to my tractor, greased it, went out, raked a couple of windrows. I figure I'll go get the baler set up, make sure it's filled, working right. I'm not going to get too carried away today. My dad's coming over Thursday evening after work. He can help me pick up hay. I'll get half of it baled Thursday, half of it baled Friday. We're doing good. I left the raking tractor out in the hayfield because I'm going to use it again. I was going to put my baler on the tractor I brought home from the farm that we ted with. It would handle my baler a little better. And I'm in my shop, greasing my baler, put the twine into it, making sure it's ready to go. And I hear raindrops outside. That wasn't the plan. Look at radar, it's like, well, this is a small cell, but there's something building, and I don't know what that's going to be. I could see something on radar, and it just didn't sit right with me. The little rain spell stopped, wasn't very much. I'm like, well, I'm going to need to let that hay dry a little longer. Walked back out to my hayfield, unhooked my tractor from the rake, figured I'll leave it out there. I'm going to use the rake out there eventually. Hook onto my hay wagon. I need to get it serviced, make sure the tires are aired up, make sure it's good to go, and bring it up, back it halfway into my shop. And I'm airing the tires up. And I'll note, I forgot to say, while I was walking out to get my tractor, I was kicking the dust up in the lane walking out to my hayfield. And like, well, not that much rain. I think we'll be all right. Give it another hour, and I think we'll be good to bale. Airing up the tires on my hay wagon, and I only had it half in the shop because my baler was in the back of the shop. And I'm working on the front two tires of the hay wagon, and it starts to rain. And not just a little bit. My rain gauge, by the time it was all said and done, recorded 3.3 inches of rain. We lost power. As I was getting the garage door open for my wife to go to work, we had 1/4-inch hail. And we had 40-mile-an-hour or so wind gusts. It was definitely a strong thunderstorm. I had had a warning sign that morning. All day, I had been watching the weather all week. Everything had been looking good. It was clear. My next chance of rain that was being forecasted wasn't until Sunday. And I thought it odd. I have a screen snapshot on my phone of what my phone said Wednesday morning. I got a notice, Storm Prediction Center. There's a chance of isolated thunderstorms Wednesday. Ask any farmer, put hay on the ground and it's going to rain. And sure enough, it rained. 3.5 inches of rain. I went out Wednesday night. By the time the rain had all finished, there's no way. This grass is soaking wet. It's wetter than what it is when you first cut it, and there is standing water in my hayfield. There's no way. I had texted some people to let them know what was going on. I knew there were people praying. I was praying. Help me keep my focus. I go out Thursday morning with the tedder. The hay's matted down. At this point, it's a rescue mission to save the field, because if I leave that crop on the field, it's going to hurt my second cutting chances. It's going to start molding. It's not going to let the air into the soil that needs to be there. It's going to damage my field. So at this point, it's a rescue mission to save my hay field. And although I try to stay off hay fields when they're soaking wet, I know I've got to get air into that hay to keep it from molding. I've got to get it loosened back up, because it is a tight mat on the ground after 3.25 inches of rain, 3.25 inches of rain. And I go out there and, finding the joy in things. It does look pretty when your tedder goes through water and you get this nice spray of water up, except for when it's your hay. Get it tedded, and I'm like, well, I got to keep it moving. And I go out Thursday afternoon after I'd gotten the kids in bed for their nap, and I ted it again. And I get out to the field, and I'm like, it's dry on top. Like 9% moisture with my moisture meter dry. There's hope. It's definitely still wet in spots, but there's hope. If it dried that much, there's hope. And I ted the field again, trying to flip it around, mix it up, get those wet chunks broken apart. And there's hope. Friday morning, I go out, ted the field again after the dew burns off, trying to get air into it, trying to get it to dry down. There's hope. And Thursday evening, when I had looked at my field, I was noticing that from the heat and the moisture that was still in the ground, the hay was regrowing very quickly. Very quickly. And what I noticed is in the spots in standing water, the hay was growing up fast enough that it was starting to hold the cut hay out of the water. There's hope. Got it tedded out, let it sit for a while, and at about 11 o'clock or so, 11:20, I headed out with the rake. I knew there was some dry spots. I could work around the wet holes and get into the dry spots, and I started raking. We're going to get this done. Got it raked, had lunch, went out after lunch, took the baler out there, started baling. Bales were coming in 10 to 15% moisture. We're going to do this. Now, when I bought my baler a few years back, the guy I bought it from said, it works great after about the first 10 to 20 bales of the season. It'll miss a little bit. Once it gets its misses out of it, tying the knot, it'll be fine. And that's been my experience. Usually within 10 bales, that thing's working great for the season, makes beautiful bales, ties knots every single time without failure. After an hour and a half of arguing with my baler, only making 25 bales, and every one of those 25 bales, I'm fairly certain, there might be one or two that this isn't the case, but every single one of those bales, the one string I had to tie by hand because it kept missing. I looked in the manual for my baler, we made some adjustments, kept missing. I knew Caleb had some round baling to do Friday for somebody else. I called Caleb and said, "What's the round baler doing?" And he chuckled. I told him what was going on. He said, "It's here if you need it." Tried a little bit more and said, "No, this isn't going to do it. I'm running out of time. I have rain coming in on Sunday. It's going to get all wet again. I've got to get this off." So I make a mad dash over to the farm. Raindrops on the windshield of the car on my drive over to the farm. You've got to be kidding me. Get the tractor, get headed back to my house, pull in, and get baling. Plugged the baler once. That was fun. "27 round bales later, it's all baled up. Some of the wet holes, the bales are a little wet, but on average, most of them are good. On the drive back home, I was racing the sun to get the tractor back home. I didn't want it to sit at my house over the weekend because I knew rain was coming Sunday, and I know Caleb likes the baler to sit inside. I like the baler to sit inside through a rainstorm. It's a pain to clean a wet baler up. So I'm racing to get it back to the farm, and I took a different route on the way home for some reason. And I'll have to tell Bill and Caleb where these fields are so they can see what they think. But I passed some cornfields that sure looked to me like they got shredded by hail. Could have been a lot worse. The hay's not fully picked up off the field yet. Ask me what I'm going to be doing tonight. One bale at a time with my Massey. But I've got the hay off the field. Almost off the field. Sometimes your focus struggles to maintain where it's supposed to be. And I know my wife is telling me I'm running out of time. But I've got one more illustration I want to show you about focus. Levi has been begging me to tell Pastor to have more slides, so I figured I'd throw a slide into the mix for Levi. Just one for him. Levi's not only been doing a wonderful job up here with scripture reading, but he's been learning in the back on the AV stuff and has been doing a good job picking up that. It's very nice to have someone else who's willing to help me. Last Sunday, I had been doing some brush hogging around the property. As we've slowly been clearing land, we want to get a second pasture put in for some rotational grazing for our horses. And so as we're clearing lands, I got to keep up on mowing so that the brush that we've been clearing doesn't grow back. And it's a chore to do, but it's got to get done. The grass was about 3.5 feet tall where I was mowing. Working back and forth, I had started while the kids were napping. They had come out as I was finishing and getting close to being done with what I wanted to get mowed. And I had a turkey that just about flew out from underneath the tractor. Like, well, I'm glad you got out of the way because that would have hurt had you gone through the mower. On my next pass back, I remembered where that turkey was and looked, and sure enough, it was a hen that was sitting on her nest. And I felt a little bad because I know sometimes when you disturb a nest, sometimes the mom leaves it alone. And I wasn't sure what she was going to do because she went from having 3.5 feet of grass, shade, protection from predators to about 6 inches of grass, 6 to 8 inches of grass. Was she going to make it? Was she going to come back? Was her focus enough on her job of raising or keeping the eggs safe and raising up some little baby turkeys that she would come back? I had forgotten about it, and yesterday when I was raking, my dad walked out. No, it was while I was tedding. I had Edward on the tractor with me tedding. My dad had walked out with Colleen, and Edward wanted to get off and play with Colleen, and my dad told me, he's like, did you know about 10 feet off from where I parked my van? I'm like, oh yeah, I know there's a nest there. I completely forgot about it. He's like, she's sitting on it. Through the blistering heat yesterday, there she is, protecting her nest at all costs. Her shade gone, protection from predators gone. She is so focused on what her task is that she says, I'm going to stay put. It wasn't until I was right over top of her with the tractor mowing that she abandoned her post. And Tanya said she kept seeing her check on what we were doing as I was mowing and finishing up, and at some point she came back. This picture I took this morning, and I was only about 10 feet away from her. She was eyeballing me, but she was staying put. Focused on the goal, focused on what she is there to do. Every one of us has our own story to tell. Every one of us is going to have trials and tribulations that we go through. What matters is where our focus stays. Is our focus going to be so strong that we can focus on Jesus, that he's going to give us the faith? And when Hebrews 11 is rewritten, when we get to heaven, our names get to be included in it by faith. Is our focus so strong, people say, the God of... Do you know the God of Don? Do you know the God of Joe? Do you know the God of Chris? If you noticed in your bulletin, the sermon title, The God of, rather than a question mark, it's a fill-in-the-blank sermon title. Who is he the God of? It's referenced the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Is your name included in that list? Will your focus be enough that he will give you the faith? Will we be able to stand at the end and sing together, "'Tis so sweet to trust in Jesus"?